Composition simply means how things are arranged. Many things in the world are compositions. When you get dressed in the morning and you make a sweet outfit, that's composing. We refer to songs as compositions because they are also an arrangement of notes. Interior design is composing a room. You may know that if you wear a very busy top, you may want to balance it out, depending on your personal style, with some more neutral pants. Compositions are personal, just like style, but we do know that we really are aiming in a painting to have the eye travel around the page. Many things will pull the eye around. A bright color. If I see pink here, and pink here, my eye is likely to travel between those things if the rest of the colors are neutral. Movement will help your eye travel around the page. If there are, say, flowers arching over to one another, that will help. If all the flowers are facing up, then the eye has nowhere to go but up and down, and it will slip off the edge of the canvas. So trying to make sure that there are areas of interest everywhere, or that colors are changing, things are brighter and darker to trick the eye into thinking there's lots more going on and to keep it moving around the canvas will really help you out. When you're building a composition for a still life, try lots of things. Move things around. If you're making a bouquet to paint, try it a bunch of different ways. It will probably take a couple tries to make it perfect. Your first idea might be sweet, but it also may not be your best idea. To make this painting, you will require paint. Surprise, surprise. As many colors as you've got, but you will certainly need the three primaries, yellow, red, and blue, and black and white. You will also require a palette, something to mix your paints on. I'm using 2 plates because I'm a wild woman. A cup for water, paint water that is, so maybe nothing that you might accidentally drink out of. You'll also require paint brushes in a variety of shapes and sizes, so you'll definitely want one bigger one and one small one. You'll require a canvas. Any size, really, your choice, something that you can paint on. And paper towels for cleaning your brushes. You're gonna want a pencil, probably an eraser. Look at the subject more than you look at the painting. You may notice when you see someone painting observationally that they're doing this. It's because the more you look at the subject, the less likely you are to get lost in the painting inventing something that isn't there. Things don't always look the way we picture them. If you ask a little kid to draw a house, it's a box with a triangle on top. Even if they live in an apartment building, it's just, we don't see houses from the front all the time. We often see them from the side, and often the tops are not triangles. Look at the subject more than you look at the page. Now that we have set up the most beautiful thing in the world, we are going to want to lightly sketch it in before we begin painting. The first thing to think about is how big everything is in relationship to everything else. I can see just by kind of measuring like this, there's the bowl, and then one, and then one, and then one. Then I know that I need to kind of think about my canvas as broken in quarters. All of these flowers are going to be represented by their biggest shapes, and we're going to fill it in with paint. Look at how big shapes are compared to one another. So I'm kind of working on this circle here, and I'll put this in a bit darker. And then I can see that this flower is not coming out over the edge here. So my bowl might actually be a bit wider. So you're looking for big shapes. I can see these petals. I'm not gonna get caught up in each little petal. I'm gonna make this kind of halo around this guy and fill those in after. And here I've got all these little shapes here, and they're coming off of this stick. So I'm gonna put the stick in and see where that would land in here. And it's gonna give me a sense of if I've done the bowl the right size or what's going on. Now I'm looking at these shapes here, so I can tell that where my little nubby thing is, straight across, is where the top of this shape is. So really be looking at where objects are in relationship to other objects. And it's also helpful to look at negative space. So there's a little gap here between these two stems, and I can see what the angle of the gap is. So you're going to continue to look for all these shapes and get them all roughed in. So this is the type of thing that is terrifying to draw, but don't get confused. So we've got all these little, so just think about this as a shape. So here are all those little buds, and then these I can see quite clearly, so I'm going to put them in, but otherwise this is all just a shape to me. So I think these are all of our major pieces put in to draw. They're drawn in, and then our next step will be to paint them. What I've done here is just looked at the paint that I have and picked all the colors that look like they might be in my painting. So I've got a lot of neutrals, so I've got a couple of different browns. I've got a burnt sienna and a raw umber. I've got a hot pink, multiple reds. I've got a warm red and a cool red, white, which I probably want lots of, and 3 different types of green and 2 different types of yellow. So to begin painting, similarly to how we started roughing in these broad shapes, we are still not going to get caught up in the details. Don't get lost in the details. Start big and work small. Begin by painting in big areas of color with a big brush. Then, with a smaller brush, you can essentially draw in the details on top. To make my green, what I've done is I've taken this blue-based green and this yellow-based green, and I'm kind of mixing them together to make something a little more neutral, and then I'm pulling it over to the white here and softening it up. You're always going to want to add your darker colors to white, to your lighter colors rather, than the other way around, because then you're not going to have to add so much paint. If I was taking the white and adding it over here, I'd be adding more and more and more and more. But if you take your darker color and add it to the light, then you don't require as much. So you can see I've made a much softer, more, it's a lot closer to the colors that I've got in here. But these are still a little bit gray, so I'm going to add a little bit of black here. When you add black and white to a color, or add gray to a color, it makes a tone. So I'm toning this color now. When you add gray to a color, it's called toning, and it makes it appear more neutral and more kind of like it would be in real life. If you just started painting my dress and went straight for blue, it would kind of be accurate, but it wouldn't be as cool. It is quite helpful to start with the midtones when you start filling in places that you're going to paint. So if you start with the sort of mid part of any color and then add the shadows and then add the highlights at the end, it seems to be a helpful working process. Just because something is red, there's not just one red, there's many reds. And while red is a primary color, which means that you can't make it by mixing other colors together, it can lean in different directions. So I would refer to this as a warm red. You can see it's kind of got an orangey vibe, whereas this I would call a cool red. It's got more of a purple vibe. So here there would be yellow, which is a warm color that would make it seem more like that. And here there's a blue undertone. So I'm just gonna get it in its kind of pure form here on my brush and see if there's anything on my composition that matches it. So you can see that it's quite close to the color that's around this pistil, I don't know, whatever this cool white knobby thing is. But it's much darker when it's here. And so actually if I hold it up to these tiny little guys, I feel like it's pretty close actually. And so I think what I'm gonna do is use this color to start filling this in. So I found a brush that kind of mimics the shape of these little flowers here. So I'm just gonna take my warm red and start, I'm not gonna get too overwhelmed by what exactly is happening here, but I'm gonna start filling in the texture. Within any big flower, like a hydrangea or something, there's little circles of flowers that or like circles of buds, so you can give yourself an area to fill in that makes some sense. So what I've done here, what I'm working on around this center yellow flower, is putting in these kind of stripes that are happening. In the flower, they're kind of half red, half yellow. And so what I'm doing is letting my brush get quite dry so there's not too much paint on it, and then kind of scrubbing it across so that it's still transparent. This is called scumbling, and it just means that I can still see some of the yellow that was already there, and it's giving me a really nice texture. I've kind of gone a little too dark in a part here, but I'm not gonna freak out, okay? I'm not gonna freak out. I'm just gonna leave that part for now. I'm gonna let it dry, and I'm gonna move on to something else, and then I'm gonna come back, and then I may or may not freak out. So I'm gonna start filling in some nice big dark places. I'm gonna take this nice burnt umber here, and I feel like it's a really nice match for a lot of the dark moments that are happening. So to me, as soon as this really dark paint starts hitting the canvas, the whole composition really begins to come to life, because contrast is something that's really gonna help bring dimensionality to your work and just simply make things pop. So we've been working in these mid-tones for most of the big swaths of color that we've been putting in. And now that we're getting something darker in there, they really have something to play against. And at the end, we're gonna put in our highlights, and that's really going to make everything sing. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very nervous about making this pinkish purple right here. I'm just gonna take this nay, make it a yay. Just gonna, here we go. Oh my God, is that beautiful? Is it beautiful? Wow, who doubted me? Don't be afraid to mix colors together. Just mix a little pile and see if you like it, and then make more. All the different colors that you have in your paintings, you can mix them up to add little nuanced details that still blend with your palette really beautifully. I know I'm gonna wanna paint my background. I think I wanna do it gray, because I think all these colors are gonna really pop on gray. I'm looking at it against this gray background here. It's really beautiful. If you paint against white, all these little white pieces where I still have a bit of canvas are gonna pop through. The colors are still gonna be quite bright because they're on top of white. To make the shadow of a color, take the opposite color from the color wheel and mix it to that color. This sounds insane, but it's true. So you may or may not know that the complement of green is red, the complement of yellow is purple, the complement of blue is orange. They sit across from one another on the color wheel. Each primary color has a secondary color that is its complement. So that means that when they're placed side by side, they appear more vivid. But when you mix them together, they kind of cancel one another out. So if you had a pale purple flower and you wanted to put shadows in it, if you just added black to that pale purple to make the shadow color, it would kind of look dirty. But if you found the opposite yellow shade to the purple shade that you're working with and mixed that in, you would make the actual shadow color. So what I'm gonna do now is kind of go back in and pull out any bright areas that we lost in the gray. Oof, but worth it. And I'm gonna paint the ground now. But what color is what we all wanna know. And as I look at my painting, I kind of am thinking pink. I feel like I want something in this world of this big flower down here to kind of balance out the red that's up top. So I'm gonna want it a lot paler, I think. So I still have all this paint on my palette, and I'm gonna just see if this was my darkest color. Oh, that's fine. Well, that's great. And look at this. Bye bye Brussels sprouts. I love to eat you, but I hate you in my painting. Bye. I'm painting the foreground, the table, I guess, pink, because when I look at the painting, I see these pink flowers up top, and I feel like they might be balanced by having some pink on the bottom. And now that I'm getting this pink in here, my God, my instincts, correct. What I'm seeing is a couple places that would benefit from stronger highlights or stronger shadows. The bowl for sure wants something like these. I feel that this painting is done. Is it beautiful? It is. Am I happy with it? I am. I want you to look at your own painting and feel the exact same way. No matter what your skill level is, no matter what you're bringing to the table here, just kidding, it's flowers. The best thing you could do is like appreciate the fact that you take some time to just zone in on something that is not your phone. It's not the news, it's not some work that you have to do for something. It's just engaging with your mind with the process of observation, hopefully achieving a state of flow where time whips by you, and when you're done, you have something beautiful.